The stars looked different from Valara Prime these days. They seemed dimmer, as if they too had given up hope. Ilara Voss stood on the broken rooftop of what was once her people's proudest building. 20 years ago, this had been the central, government hall, its towers reaching toward the sky like fingers of hope. Now it was a crumbling shell, much like the spirit of her people. She clutched a small device in her hand. It was no larger than her palm, its metal casing scratched and worn from years of protection. This tiny transmitter represented their last chance. "Do you really think anyone will hear it?" Keith Bennett asked, joining her at the edge of the roof. His human features looked tired in the fading light of day. He had been stranded on their world when the invasion began, the only human who couldn't escape before the blockade trapped them all. Ilara's violet eyes remained fixed on the sky. "They have to. The old records are clear. Earth promised to come if we ever called." Keith sighed and ran a hand through his graying hair. Once black as space itself, now it showed the wear of 18 years hiding from the Kesmora patrols. "That promise was made 150 years ago, Ilara. Earth might not even remember who the Volari are anymore." She turned to face him, her expression hardened by years of leading what remained of the resistance. "Then we remind them. This transmitter contains everything, our history, the treaty signed by our ancestors, and what the Kesmora have done to our world." Below them, the city lay in ruins. Once home to millions, now barely 50,000 Volari remained. The rest had been taken to labor camps in the mountains, forced to mine the precious xanthium that powered the Kesmora war machines. Those who resisted simply disappeared. "We should get back," Keith said, glancing nervously at the darkening sky. "Patrols will start soon." Ilara nodded, but didn't move. "Just a few more minutes. I want to see the stars fully. For courage." Keith understood. In the 18 years since being stranded here, he had grown to love these people as his own. Their blue-tinged skin and violet eyes had once seemed alien to him. Now, they were family. "The signal," he said quietly. "How far will it reach?" "If it works as designed beyond the blockade. The engineers built it to use the Kesmora's own communication relays against them. They'll never detect it." A distant rumble shook the building beneath them. Another transport. Ship taking off, loaded with resources stripped from their dying world. The Kesmora were thorough in their plunder. "It's time," Ilara said. They descended through the ruined building, careful to avoid loose debris that might give away their position. The streets below were nearly empty as curfew approached. Any Volari caught outside after dark faced immediate arrest or worse. Their hideout lay beneath the old market district, in tunnels dug centuries ago when the Volari had faced a different enemy. History had a cruel way of repeating itself. Scott Riley met them at the hidden entrance, his hand resting on the small blaster at his hip, one of the few weapons they had managed to keep working. Like Keith, Scott had been part of the human, diplomatic team. Unlike the others, he and Keith had chosen to stay when the evacuation order came. "Everyone's waiting," Scott said, his voice low. Word spread faster than we expected. Inside, nearly 40 members of the resistance had gathered in the main chamber. Once this space had been used for storage. Now it served as command center. Living quarters and last refuge all at once. Ilara stepped onto a raised platform at the center of the room. All eyes turned to her. Violet, green, and blue, all filled with the same desperate hope. "Tonight," she began, "we send our call into the stars. Our ancestors believed in friendship between worlds. They trusted humans enough to sign a pact of mutual defense. Now we will see if that trust was well placed." She held up the transmitter for all to see. "This device contains everything our human friends will need to find us, to understand what has happened here. It carries our story, our suffering, and our plea for help." An older Volari stepped forward. Narration had been a historian before the invasion, keeper of the ancient records. What if they have forgotten us? Or worse, what if they choose not to come? The question hung in the air like poison. Ilara had asked herself the same thing countless times. Keith moved to stand beside her. I cannot speak for my entire species, he said, addressing the room. But I know this. Humans remember their promises. And more importantly, humans hate bullies. A small smile touched Alara's lips. It was a strange word. Bullies. One Keith had taught her years ago. But it fit the Kesmora perfectly, whether help comes or not, Alara continued. We must try. Hope is all we have left. She pressed her thumb against the transmitter's activation panel. It hummed to life, lights blinking along its surface. Years of planning, of secret work, and stolen parts all for this moment. Now, she said. Scott moved to a console they had built from salvaged parts. His fingers danced across the controls, establishing the connection to the hidden antenna network they had spent years placing around the planet. Signal pathway active, he reported. Ready when you are. Alara took a deep breath and pressed the final sequence on the transmitter. The device glowed brighter, then emitted a single tone that faded to silence. Is that it? Someone asked. Yes, Keith answered. The message is writing the Kesmora's own communication waves hidden in the background noise. Their systems will carry it beyond the blockade without them ever knowing. A low murmur spread through the room, part relief, part lingering doubt. How long until we know if someone heard it? Asked a young Volari woman. Alara exchanged a glance with Keith. This was the hardest part. We don't know, she admitted. It depends on how far the nearest human ship is. Days, weeks, maybe longer. If they come at all, Naren added quietly. They'll come, Keith insisted. I know my people. Later, when the others had gone to their sleeping quarters, Alara found Keith sitting alone, staring at an old photograph. It showed him standing with other humans and Volari, all smiling, from the days before the invasion. You really believe they'll come? She asked, sitting beside him. Keith looked up, his eyes reflecting the dim light. Humanity has changed since I've been gone, Alara. The last messages I received before the blockade spoke of new ships, new weapons. Earth learned the hard way that the galaxy isn't always friendly. But will they risk those ships for us? For a promise made generations ago? Keith tucked the photo away. That's the thing about humans, we're stubborn. We remember both friends and enemies for a very long time. Above them, beyond layers of rock and ruin, beyond the atmosphere and the blockade of Kesmora warships, their message raced outward into the darkness of space, a tiny spark of hope traveling at the speed of light. 3 weeks later, in a sector of space far from Valera Prime, a human patrol ship picked up an unusual signal buried in background radiation. The duty officer, almost dismissing it as cosmic noise, ran it through the advanced decryption systems once more. The computer beeped. Signal authenticated. Treaty code recognized. Captain, the officer called out. You need to see this. On the bridge of the USFS Valiant, Captain Sean Murphy read the decoded message with growing concern. His ship was the closest to the Volari system, a newly commissioned warship carrying Earth's most advanced defense systems. Plot a course, he ordered. Maximum speed. As the Valiant's engines powered up, Murphy recorded a brief message to Earth Command. Responding to distress call from the Volari. Treaty obligations in effect. Request additional support. We are going in. The stars blurred as the ship jumped to FTL speed. The silence was about to be broken. Captain Sean Murphy stood at the command center of the USFS Valiant, his eyes fixed on the holographic display showing their approach to the Volari system. 3 weeks had passed since they received the distress signal. 3 weeks of pushing. The ship's engines beyond recommended limits. Status report, he said, his voice steady despite the tension running through the bridge. Lieutenant Gabrielle Martinez looked up from her console. We'll exit FTL in 5 minutes, Captain. Long-range scans show heavy activity around Vollara Prime. 17 orbital platforms, 3 capital ships, and dozens of smaller vessels. Murphy nodded. The Kesmora presence was even stronger than intelligence had suggested. The Valiant was a powerful warship, but these odds would challenge even her advanced systems. Any response to our message, Deity? He asked. Communications Officer Alan Reed shook his head. Nothing, sir. If there are humans still on the surface, they're maintaining radio silence, or they can't transmit through the blockade. Murphy turned to his first officer. Clayton, prep the crew for possible engagement. I want all systems at full readiness. Commander Frank Clayton nodded sharply. Already done, sir. The crew's been ready since we received the distress call. A quiet determination filled the bridge. The Valiant carried 240 crew members, each aware of the risks they faced. They were the first to respond, but hopefully not the last. Murphy had sent word to Earth Command the moment they verified the Volari signal. The 8th Fleet would be mobilizing, but they were days behind. Captain, said Chief Science Officer Alec Foster, I've analyzed the Kesmora ships based on our intelligence reports. Their weapons are primarily energy-based, plasma cannons and focused radiation beams. Powerful, but our adaptive shields should be able to counter them once they've analyzed the attack patterns. Murphy walked to Foster's station and studied the detailed scans. Their vulnerabilities? Their communication systems appear centralized. If we can disrupt their network, we might be able to isolate the ships from each other. The ship's AI, area, spoke through the bridge speakers. Captain, I've completed analysis of potential approach vectors, recommending shadow path behind Valera's third moon. It will mask our heat signature until final approach. Plot the course, Murphy ordered. Tactical, prepare a full spread of electronic warfare drones. We'll need to gather more data before we engage directly. At the tactical station, Commander Diana Wells began programming the automated drones. Each one was no larger than a human hand, but contained advanced systems designed to infiltrate enemy networks, gather intelligence, and, if necessary, disable key systems. Sir? Martinez said, her voice lowering slightly. What if we're too late? The distress call could have been sent months ago. Murphy had considered this many times during their journey. Then we still have a duty to the survivors. And if there are none, we owe it to them to make sure the Kesmora pay for what they've done. The countdown clock reached 0. The Valiant dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system, immediately activating its stealth systems. To any observer, the ship would appear as nothing more than a brief energy fluctuation, easily dismissed as cosmic background radiation. Passive scans only, Murphy ordered. Let's see what we're dealing with before we announce ourselves. The crew worked in focused silence as the Valiant glided through the outer reaches of the Volari system. Data flowed in, building a clearer picture of the situation. The news wasn't good. Sensors show extensive mining operations on Valera Prime, Foster reported. They're stripping the planet of resources. Population centers are greatly reduced, from our last records. Murphy's jaw tightened. Life signs? Scattered. Maybe 50,000 in the main settlement, down from millions. Larger concentrations in what appear to be labor camps near mining sites. On the main view screen, Valera Prime grew larger. A world once known for its lush forests and clear blue oceans, now scarred by massive mining operations. Smoke clouded portions of the atmosphere where refineries processed the stolen resources. Any sign of resistance? Murphy asked. Wells studied her readings. Minimal. Small energy signatures that might be hidden bases. The Kesmora have the planet locked down tight. The Valiant slipped into the shadow of Valera's third moon, as Arya had suggested. From this position, they had a clear view of the enemy fleet while remaining hidden from conventional scans. Launch recon drones, Murphy ordered. I want eyes on those labor camps and any potential resistance strongholds. 12 small objects, silently deployed from the Valiant's hull, spreading out toward different targets across the planet. Their advanced stealth technology made them nearly impossible to detect, a product of humanity's decades of research into defensive capabilities. As they waited for the drones to gather information, Murphy retreated to his ready room and opened his personal log. Captain's log, June 5, 2157. We've arrived at Valera Prime to find the situation worse than we feared. The Kesmora occupation has devastated the planet and its people. We're outnumbered and deep in enemy territory, but retreat is not an option. The Volari waited for us. They trusted in a promise made generations ago. We will not fail them. He closed the log and stared at the small display showing Valara Prime. In the century since humans first ventured beyond their solar system, they had learned hard lessons about the dangers waiting among the stars. Not every species valued peace. Not every encounter led to friendship. Earth had faced its own threats, survived its own battles, and emerged stronger but wiser. The door chimed, interrupting his thoughts. "Enter." Commander Wells stepped in, holding a data pad. "Sir, the drones have located what appears to be a resistance base beneath the ruins of the capital city. We're detecting 2 human life signs." Murphy stood quickly. "Our people survived." "Yes, sir. And there's more. The drones intercepted internal communications from the Kesmora command ship. They're planning to move several thousand Volari to off-world facilities tomorrow. Once they're taken off-planet, we might never find them," Murphy finished. "How long until the 8th Fleet arrives?" 5 days at minimum, sir." Murphy's decision was instant. "We're not waiting. Prep the strike. Teams, we move tonight." Back on the bridge, Murphy addressed his senior officers. "We can't take on their entire fleet yet, but we can conduct a surgical strike to buy time until reinforcements arrive. Priority 1 is establishing contact with the resistance and securing their safety. Priority 2 is disrupting the planned prisoner transport." Commander Clayton looked concerned. "Sir, if we reveal ourselves too soon—" "I know the risks, Frank, but sometimes you have to make noise to be heard." Murphy turned to the tactical display. "We'll use the Thanatos system as a demonstration. 1 shot, 1 target. Show them what they're dealing with." The officers exchanged glances. The Thanatos defense system was the newest and most classified weapon in Earth's arsenal, a focused quantum disruption that could tear apart molecular bonds. The Valiant was the first ship equipped with the technology. "Sir," Wells said, "which target do you recommend?" Murphy studied the display showing the Kesmora fleet. "Their smallest destroyer. We're not here for mass destruction, just a clear message." As the Valiant's crew prepared for their first strike against the Kesmora on the surface of Valara Prime, Alara Voss felt something she hadn't experienced in years. A flickering sense of hope. The Resistance's hidden sensors had detected unusual movements in the orbital traffic pattern. Something had disturbed the routine of their oppressors. "Keith," she called out, hurrying to find her human friend. "I think something's happening." Keith Bennett was helping to repair one of their few remaining communication devices when she found him. "What is it?" "The Kesmora ships are changing positions, running more scans than usual. It's as if they're looking for something." Keith set down his tools, a cautious hope in his eyes. Or someone. Above them, hidden in the shadow of a moon, the USFS Valiant prepared to break an 18-year silence with the thunder of humanity's retribution. Supreme Executor Krall stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Undying Glory. For 18 years he had overseen the harvesting of Valara Prime. The operation had brought him great honor among the Kesmora Empire. Soon the final phase would begin, the complete strip mining of the planet's core regardless of the effects on the remaining Volari. Executor, his second-in-command, approached with unusual hesitation. "Our sensors detected an anomaly near the third moon." Krall turned, his gray skin tight across his angular face. "Explain." It appeared and vanished within seconds. Possibly a sensor malfunction, but 3 different systems recorded it. Krall had not risen to his position by ignoring details. "Increase patrols in that sector, and bring our main weapons online." "Is that necessary, Executor? The Volari have no space capability left." "Do not question me," Krall snapped. "The Empire maintains control through absolute vigilance." The command deck fell silent as officers rushed to obey. Krall turned back to the viewport, studying the curve of Valara Prime below. Strange that after all these years he felt an unexpected tension in his spine. Across the void, Captain Murphy watched the increased activity among the Kesmora fleet with grim satisfaction. They sensed something, he said. Not enough to find us, but enough to make them nervous. Commander Wells nodded from her tactical station. Their patrol ships are moving toward the moon. Shall we relocate? No. Let them come closer. Murphy turned to communications. Officer Reed, prepare our message on all frequencies. It's time the Kesmora learned who they're dealing with. Reed's fingers moved across his console. Message ready, sir. Murphy nodded. Now we show them we're here. Tactical, target the smallest destroyer with the Thanatos system. Minimal yield, just enough for a demonstration. Target locked, Wells confirmed. Thanatos charged at 20% capacity. Murphy took a deep breath. This would be the first combat use of the system, and the moment humanity announced its return to this sector of space. Fire. From the Valiant's forward section, a single projectile launched. Small, unimpressive, barely visible against the darkness of space. It traveled toward the targeted Kesmora destroyer at incredible speed. On the Kesmora vessel, alarm sounded as sensors detected the incoming object. The ship's captain barely had time to order evasive action before the projectile detonated 100 meters from their hull. There was no explosion in the conventional sense. Instead, a sphere of shimmering energy expanded outward, engulfing the ship's rear section. Where the energy touched, matter simply unraveled. The destroyer's engine compartment disappeared, molecular bonds dissolved by the Thanatos field. The crippled ship spun helplessly, life support failing, its crew in panic. Across the Kesmora fleet, stunned silence fell as they witnessed a weapon unlike anything in their arsenal. Murphy didn't wait for them to recover. Communications, send our message. Throughout the Kesmora fleet, view screens activated without command. The face of Captain Sean Murphy appeared on every ship simultaneously, a demonstration of electronic warfare capabilities as impressive as the physical attack. Attention, Kesmora forces. I am Captain Sean Murphy of the United Space Forces ship Valiant, representing Earth and the Terran Alliance. You have invaded the sovereign world of Valara Prime and enslaved its people in violation of galactic law and established treaties. We demand your immediate and unconditional withdrawal from this system. On the undying glory, Krell stared at the human face with growing rage. Trace the signal. Find that ship. Impossible, Executor. His communications officer responded. They've overridden our systems completely. Murphy's message continued. The weapon you just witnessed was deployed at minimal capacity as a demonstration. We have no desire for unnecessary bloodshed. You have 6 hours to begin evacuation of your forces. After that time, we will take further action. The transmission ended, leaving the Kesmora command deck in chaos. Prepare all ships for battle, Krell ordered. I will not be threatened by a single vessel regardless of their weapons. Deep beneath the ruined capital city of Valara Prime, a different scene unfolded. The resistance base erupted in activity, as every communication device they possessed suddenly activated, showing Captain Murphy's message. Ilara Voss stared at the screen, her violet eyes wide with disbelief. They came, she whispered. Earth remembered. Keith Bennett stood beside her, tears streaming down his weathered face. That's a Terran Alliance uniform. Humanity united the nations after I left. He pointed to the insignia on Murphy's collar. And that's a captain's rank. They sent a warship. Around them, Volari resistance fighters embraced, some weeping openly. 18 years of occupation, of watching their world stripped away piece by piece, and now, hope arrived in the form of a single human vessel. Can they really defeat the entire Kesmora fleet? Ilara asked. Keith's expression was grim but confident. That weapon they used, nothing like that existed when I was stranded here. Earth must have advanced far beyond what I knew. Scott Riley pushed through the crowd carrying a modified communicator. I think I can establish contact with their ship. The Kesmora communication systems are in disarray. There's a gap in their jamming field. On the Valiant, Lieutenant Martinez's console lit up. "Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's on an old emergency frequency." Murphy moved to her station quickly. "Put it through." The voice that came through was human, though strained by poor signal quality. "This is Keith Bennett, Diplomatic Attaché, Earth Embassy to Valera Prime. Is that really you up there?" Murphy couldn't help but smile. "Mr. Bennett, this is Captain Murphy of the USFS Valiant. We received your distress call. Hold position. Help is coming." In orbit, the Kesmora were far from surrendering. Kral ordered his fleet into attack formation, 20 ships advancing toward the moon where they believed the human vessel was hiding. "The human ship must be destroyed," he commanded. "No witnesses can remain to report our activities here." The Valiant's sensors tracked the approaching fleet. "Captain," Commander Clayton warned, "they're moving to attack position. All ships charging weapons." Murphy had expected this. The Kesmora Empire had conquered 12 systems before reaching Valara. They would not retreat after a single demonstration. "Deploy electronic warfare drones," he ordered. "Target their command and control systems first, then their weapons. I want their fleet disabled, not destroyed if possible." Wells launched the drones, 24 small objects that accelerated toward the Kesmora ships. Each contained advanced systems designed to infiltrate enemy networks and disrupt operations. "And what about the Undying Glory?" Clayton asked, indicating Krell's flagship. Murphy studied the massive vessel on the tactical display. "That one will handle personally. Bring us out of hiding, full power to shields." The Valiant emerged from the moon's shadow, its stealth systems deactivating as power diverted to defensive measures. The ship was impressive, sleek and powerful, its hull marked with the emblems of Earth and the Terran Alliance. On the surface, Alara organized her fighters. "If the Kesmora are distracted by the battle in orbit, this is our chance to strike at their ground installations." Keith nodded in agreement. "The labor camps should be our priority. Free our people while their guards are looking to the sky." "Scott," worked the communicator coordinating with the Valiant. "Captain Murphy says they're sending down strike teams to assist us. They'll be here within the hour." For the first time in 18 years, the Valari resistance moved openly through the ruins of their city, their steps quick and determined. Above them, the night sky flashed with energy as the battle for Valera Prime began. In orbit, the Kesmora fleet fired their main weapons at the Valiant. Beams of concentrated plasma streaked across space, enough firepower to destroy a small moon. The beams struck the Valiant's shields and shattered into harmless light. The human vessel's defensive systems absorbed the energy, analyzing and adapting to each attack. "Shields holding at 92%, reported Martinez. "Their weapons are powerful but predictable." Murphy nodded calmly. "Now it's our turn. Let's show them what humanity has learned about defending its friends." The Valiant's own weapons came online, not just the Thanatos system, but conventional armaments enhanced by technologies developed during humanity's expansion among the stars. As the first human shots fired back at the Kesmora fleet, a message, spread across Valara Prime, whispered from person to person, "The silence is broken. Humanity has returned." The sky above Valara Prime flashed with the light of battle. The USFS Valiant moved with surprising grace for a warship of its size, evading the increasingly desperate attacks from the Kesmora fleet, while its electronic warfare drones continued their work. One by one, enemy ships lost power, weapon systems failed, and communication networks collapsed. On the surface, Keith Bennett led a team of resistance fighters toward the largest labor camp, located in what had once been the Valari's most beautiful national park. Now the land was scarred by mining operations that had stripped away ancient forests. "The guards are distracted," Keith whispered, watching as the Kesmora soldiers stared skyward at the battle above. "Most of their communication systems are down thanks to the Valiant's attack." Alara nodded, checking her makeshift weapon. "We have 5 teams approaching the other camps. Once we hear from the human strike forces, we move." Their communicator crackled to life. "Ground Team Alpha to resistance forces. We are in position on the eastern perimeter. Operation begins on your signal." Keith recognized the calm, professional tone of trained soldiers. "This is Keith Bennett. We're ready." Seconds later, precisely targeted energy beams struck the camp's guard towers. The shots came from human soldiers in advanced combat suits, their positions hidden in the surrounding hills. The Kesmora guards fell before they could sound alarms. "Now," Keith ordered, and the resistance fighters surged forward. For the captive Valeri, the sight of their own people charging into the camp, alongside humans in sleek combat armor, seemed like a dream. Many had been prisoners for years working, until they collapsed, watching friends and family die from exhaustion. A young Valeri woman approached Keith, her violet eyes wide with disbelief. "You're human," she said, "like in the old stories." Keith smiled gently. "The old stories are true, and we keep our promises." Above, the battle reached its turning point. The Valiant had disabled or destroyed 14 enemy vessels without suffering significant damage. The ship's adaptive shields had analyzed the Kesmora weapons and now blocked over 95% of incoming fire. "Captain," Commander Wells reported, "the enemy flagship is making a run for the outer system. They're abandoning their ground forces." Murphy's expression hardened. "Not so fast. Target their engines with conventional weapons. I want that ship intact, and I want their commander." The Valiant fired, precise shots striking the massive engines of the Undying Glory. The Kesmora flagship slowed, trailing debris and venting atmosphere from multiple hull breaches. "Open a channel," Murphy ordered. Supreme Executor Krall appeared on the view screen, his gray features contorted with rage. "Human," he spat. "You have interfered in Imperial business. This planet belongs to the Kesmora by right of conquest." "No world belongs to you by right of conquest," Murphy replied calmly. "The Volari are a sovereign people under the protection of Earth and the Terran Alliance. Your remaining choice is simple. Surrender your vessel and prepare to answer for your crimes or be destroyed." Krall's eyes narrowed. "The Empire will send more ships. This sector will burn for your interference." "Perhaps," Murphy said. "But you won't be alive to see it. You have 1 minute to surrender." The channel closed. Murphy turned to his first officer. "Prepare boarding teams. I want Krall alive if possible." "Sir," Martinez interrupted. "The enemy flagship is powering up its main weapon. They're diverting all remaining energy to it." Murphy nodded. "A final act of defiance. Target their weapon with the Thanatos system. Minimal yield. Just enough to disable it." The Valiant fired once more. The nearly invisible projectile struck the Undying Glory precisely where its main cannon was building energy. The weapon dissolved into its component atoms, leaving a gaping hole in the ship's forward section. "They're surrendering, Captain," Martinez reported, surprise evident in her voice. On the surface, the liberation of the labor camps continued. Human strike teams worked alongside Volari resistance fighters, freeing thousands of prisoners and securing critical facilities. The few Kesmora soldiers who resisted were quickly overwhelmed. Most surrendered when they realized their fleet had been defeated. Scott Riley coordinated operations from the resistance base, relaying information between ground teams and the Valiant. "Keith," he called over the secure channel. "The main city, center is secure. The Kesmora governor has surrendered his forces." 4 hours after the Valiant had revealed itself, the occupation of Valera Prime effectively ended. 18 years of oppression, concluded in less than a day by a single human warship. As the sun rose over the liberated planet, Captain Murphy and a team of officers took a shuttle to the surface. They landed in what remained of the central plaza of the capital city. Thousands of Volari had gathered to see the humans who had saved their world. Alara and Keith waited as Murphy descended from the shuttle. The captain was younger than Keith had expected, but his eyes held the steady confidence of someone accustomed to command. "Captain Murphy," Keith said, extending his hand in the traditional human greeting. "Thank you seems inadequate, but it's all I have." Murphy clasped his hand firmly. "No thanks necessary, Mr. Bennett. We keep our promises." Alara stepped forward. "My people owe yours a debt we can never repay." "There is no debt between friends," Murphy replied. "The treaty between our worlds remains valid. We've simply honored our part." The Volari around them cheered, many weeping openly. Children who had known nothing but occupation stared in wonder at the humans in their crisp uniforms. "What happens now?" Alara asked. "The 8th Fleet will arrive within days," Murphy explained. "They'll establish a defensive perimeter around the system. Earth is sending humanitarian aid ships, medical teams, and engineers to help rebuild." "And the Kesmora?" Keith asked. "Their leadership will face justice. As for the Empire itself..." Murphy's expression grew more serious. "This may be the beginning of a larger conflict. But Earth will not stand by while worlds like yours suffer." That evening, as human medical teams treated the injured and supply pods distributed food and medicine, Murphy stood with Alara and Keith on a hillside overlooking the city. The Valiant was visible in orbit, its silhouette outlined against the setting sun. "I never thought I'd see Earth technology again," Keith said quietly. "When I was stranded here, we were just beginning our expansion into space. That ship of yours, it's beyond anything we dreamed of back then." Murphy nodded. "After the first Proxima War, humanity realized how vulnerable we were. We united, pooled our resources, developed new technologies, not for conquest, but to ensure that what happened to the colonies in that war would never happen again." Alara studied Murphy carefully. "Your people could rule many worlds with such power." "That's not our way," Murphy replied. "We've learned that real strength comes not from domination, but from building something worth defending, and finding allies worth fighting for." A signal chimed on Murphy's communicator. "Captain, long-range sensors have detected multiple ships entering the system." "It's the 8th Fleet, sir. They've arrived ahead of schedule." Relief washed over Murphy's features. "Acknowledged." As they watched, new points of light appeared in the darkening sky. Human ships arriving in formation. First a few, then dozens. Then over 100 vessels of varying sizes, from massive carriers to sleek destroyers similar to the Valiant. "My God," Keith whispered. "So many." "The largest deployment since the Proxima War," Murphy confirmed. "Earth takes its commitments seriously." For the Volari watching from below, the arrival of the human fleet represented more than just rescue. It was redemption. Their faith in an ancient promise had been vindicated. As night fell completely, the lights of the human vessels formed a protective network around Valara Prime. After 18 years of darkness and oppression, the sky above the planet shone with the light of salvation. Murphy turned to Alara. "Your people waited for us. We won't leave you again." And for the first time in nearly 2 decades, the Volari looked to the stars not with despair, but with hope.